Oliver Green was the first one to arrive at conference room 3 for the 8:15 Monday morning meeting. He dreaded these meetings with every fiber of his being. Nothing ever came of them. The team leads sat around the long rectangular faux wooden table and talked a bunch of nonsense about the numbers their teams achieved last week. The district manager, Dirk Douglas, would listen to each team lead report while pretending to value their work and opinions. At the end of the presentations, Dirk would say the same thing. The numbers must be higher. Make them higher. The team leads would then nod their heads like they knew how they were going to make it happen. They have no clue how to make it happen. They basically had to Tim Gunn it. Just make it work. The worst thing about it all was that the entire meeting could have been an email. In fact, the numbers were sent to each member of management at 8 a.m. Monday morning. This meant that Dirk could have simply looked at it and known exactly what the numbers were and saved an hour of everyone's time. No, he wouldn't do that. He wanted to sit and stare at his subordinates as they tried to explain why the numbers weren't high enough. He wanted to watch them squirm. Oliver thought this was sick. Taking his usual spot in the back of the oval-shaped room, Oliver waited for the other team leads. He questioned whether he really belonged there. He wasn't even a team lead, not officially. His team lead, Scott, was on medical leave, so Oliver was voluntold to pick up the slack without so much as a pay raise. Scott had been on leave for 3 months with no clue when he was coming back. Oliver prayed for Scott's eventual return. At 8:11, the team leads began to file in. There were 5 leads and then Oliver. Only 4 of them were present. Trebecca Alexander was absent. Rumor around the cubicle farm was that she had food poisoning. In Trebecca's stead was Catherine Weir. She sat down next to Oliver upon seeing him. In her hands, she tightly gripped a printed copy of the email containing the numbers. "Good morning," Oliver said, happy to see a friendly face. Catherine sighed as she sat back in the plastic chair generously provided by WorkCorp. What the hell even is this meeting? What the hell do these numbers even mean? Nothing, really. It's a useless performative ritual we do to appease the top floor, and we make them think we're actually worth the money they give us. Oliver rolled his eyes as he said this. He was going to explain to Catherine how the ritual was performed, but Dirk Douglas entered the room at 8:15 on the dot. Whatever conversations were happening ceased immediately. All eyes were on him. "Good morning," Dirk said. He nodded as his subordinates all murmured their good mornings. He sat down in his comfy and cushy chair at the head of the table and said, "Give me those numbers. Perry, you're first." As Perry read his team's numbers, Oliver sat anxiously in his chair. Not only was he uncomfortable and moody, he was sitting directly on his tailbone, because he had the misfortune of losing weight, and with it, his ass. "I've got to get out of here," he thought. "I swear to God, if I spend another minute sitting in this bullshit meeting in these goddamn awful chairs, I'm going to lose it." His legs were suddenly restless as they bounced up and down as if responding to some inaudible beat. The nervous energy traveled up from the soles of his feet to the very tips of his brown hair. Before he knew it, he was on his feet, staring down Dirk as he shouted, "Enough!" The fluorescent lights flickered briefly as Perry stopped talking mid-sentence. Everyone turned to look at Oliver. All eyes were on him. Oliver didn't know what to do with the attention. He didn't have anything else planned, but the wheels had already started rolling, and they couldn't be stopped now. Dirk furrowed his brow as he acknowledged Oliver. "You'll have your chance to report as soon as Perry is done." Oliver swallowed as he prepared to respond. He felt something brewing within him, inside his guts and inside his brain. Suddenly, he knew what to say. "No, I think I've had just about enough of this." The team leads gasped in unison. "I think we all have. There's no need for the dog and pony show. You can read just as well as the rest of us. You want to look at the numbers? Then open your email and look at them. Leave us out of it." He sought support from the others, but judging how they all shifted their gaze from him like they didn't know him, he guessed he didn't have it. Oliver surmised by the redness of Dirk's cheeks and the disapproving stern expression on his face that he was not amused. Dirk leaned forward and steepled his fingers. "Is that how you really feel, Mr. Green?" He watched Oliver nod. He turned to the team leads and asked, "Is that how you all feel? Does he speak for you?" The leads were frozen on the spot, unable to move, unable to blink, unable to speak. Anyone care to speak up and back Mr. Green? Dirk's intense eye contact held the leads in his sway. His power. There doesn't seem to be any dissension from your peers. Oliver and Catherine watched in terror as the leads stood up from the table in unison and turned to face them. Their expressions were vacant and blank. It was as if someone degoused their brains. It was then they understood that they were under Dirk's direct control. By rights, I shouldn't even be here, Oliver said, allowing the fear to trickle into his once defiant voice. I'm not even a team lead. Me either, Catherine added. Dirk nodded his head and stood up. That's probably why you're not under my control right now. Well, I guess that means I have no further need for you. He snapped his fingers, and the leads straightened their postures in response. I'm sure the top floor wouldn't mind losing a couple of rabble-rousers. He motioned toward Oliver and Catherine, and the leads marched immediately forward. Oliver's eyes widened in terror as his mesmerized coworkers slowly ambled toward him. Yeah, fuck this! He took hold of Catherine's arm and led her to the nearby door. Just as they reached it, it clicked shut and became immovable. Fools. All the exits are sealed. Dirk's voice was dripping with smugness. The ritual must be completed. You will comply. Oliver's mind raced as he tried to figure a way out of the situation. This was the craziest shit ever. This wasn't even the usual Monday fuckery. This shit was usually reserved for Tuesdays. He was not prepared for this. Catherine grabbed one of the chairs and threw it against the glass window, which was also the wall, making the conference room a human terrarium. The chair bounced off the glass and fell to the floor, sending sharp vibrations throughout her arms. She cursed intelligibly as she recoiled from the shock. What do we do? She asked. Oliver didn't know. There was no way to avoid the zombie team leads. The table divided the room in half, but it was only a plastic facsimile of a wooden table. It wasn't heavy enough to be an effective barrier. There was nothing they could do but allow themselves to be manhandled by the corporate drones. And manhandled they were. Oliver and Catherine did the requisite struggling as Perry and the other leads wrestled them into compliance. Bring them here, Dirk commanded. The leads obeyed unflinchingly. They shoved the corporate peons to their manager and made them kneel before him. This brought a smile to his face. He reached down and lifted Oliver's head so that his eyes were focused on his middle-aged face. Mr. Green, I really liked you. That's why I suggested that you be made an acting team lead. Dirk pinched Oliver's left cheek before lightly slapping it. His hand was moist and warm. If you and Miss Weir supplicate yourselves to me for your jobs, we won't have to let the top floor know about any of this. Then after that, we'll go back to the meeting. What do you say? Oliver and Catherine exchanged glances, each one silently asking the other if this little rebellion was worth being killed for, or worse, fired for. Let's face it, the job market was crap, and WorkCorp paid better than most, which wasn't saying much. The last thing Oliver wanted to do was swallow his pride and submit to Dirk, but if it meant not being unemployed, he supposed it was worth it. Lowering his head in shame, Oliver quietly said, Please, sir, let us keep our jobs. We will read the numbers. We will complete the ritual. Dirk once again lifted Oliver's face upward and savored the look of defeat on it. He inhaled deeply through his nose, as if to be taking in Oliver's scent. Let them up. The leads yanked them onto their feet. Let's pick up where we left off. He motioned for them to return to their seats. Once they were seated, the team leads appeared to snap out of their trance. They blinked the last of the mesmerism out of their eyes and picked up their reports. Perry resumed the reading. Oliver and Catherine sat in silence until it was their turn to present. When they finished, Dirk thanked everyone for the reports and for their hard work. The last part of the ritual, telling them to bring those numbers up, concluded the meeting and everyone was dismissed. The door unlocked and everyone was allowed to leave. The two non-leads waited until the real leads left, leaving them alone with Dirk. He strode to the door and gave Oliver a look that was akin to a parent who wasn't mad, just disappointed. Mr. Green, you are destined for great things. The top floor has their eyes on you. He offered a warm yet sinister grin. Oh, yes. Do they ever have plans for you? You don't want to disappoint them, because if you do, it'll be the last thing you'll do at WorkCorp. And with that, Dirk left the conference room. Oliver shivered as the last thing Dirk said echoed in his head. He didn't like the idea that the top floor was watching him. He never felt so seen. He never wanted that. How had he accidentally become important? And how could he safely become unimportant? He asked himself, what would Mama Rue say? You better work. And so he decided he would. It was time to look busy.